Here is my final exam for this class. I hope you enjoy it. I found it interesting to see how religion affected art throughout history. The Renaissance portrayed biblical stories in one way, the Counter-Reformation in a very different form, and the Baroque in a completely different fashion. As a result, I have decided to focus on Gerrit von Hornthurst's Mocking of Christ and compare this biblical story to other religious artwork we studied this semester, including Michelangelo's David, Bernini's David, and Michelangelo's The Last Judgment. The picture I chose to analyze is Gerrit von Hornthurst's A Mocking of Christ. Von Hornthurst was a student of Caravaggio, so he copied the natural style of his teacher. Unlike earlier paintings who sought to paint their subjects as beautiful, one can see the painting of subjects are not posed but instead are painted in their natural state, standing around mocking Jesus. One can see dramatic gestures and contrasts of light and dark in this painting. The subject in the front is holding a candle to illuminate Jesus, but one can also see the shadow cast across one of the accusers in the back, since he is putting his hand up to block the light from the candle. In this painting, one can see a contrast of light and dark, Jesus being the light while his accusers are the dark. One can see von Hornthurst became famous for using artificial light in his paintings. Again, the only source of light in the painting was a candle. Our textbook describes Baroque as Baroque artists reveled in dynamicism and theatrics. Von Hornthurst painted during the Baroque period, and like his teacher Caravaggio, one can see the theatrics of Baroque style in the shadowing and the placing Jesus in the highlight of the candle. One can also see Jesus in the spotlight, and his accusers are all staged in such a way to appear to be laughing at him. Our textbook points out that the Renaissance style and the interest in classical culture, perspective, and proportion and human anatomy dominated the remainder of the 16th century. This interest in classical culture, perspective, and human anatomy can clearly be seen in Michelangelo's David. Many believe that the David sculpture is very similar to the classic pose of the ancient Greek hero Hercules, whereas the Mocking of Christ, one can see the interest in human anatomy by looking at the muscles on Jesus. Also, there is no attention to human anatomy on Jesus' accusers. Also, considering David is also a huge sculpture, the Mocking of Jesus is a painting. The clear use of light, which von Hornthurst is famous for, is a distinction among two pieces of art. It is also interesting to compare the sculpture from the Baroque period to this painting. Baroque art and architectures in Italy, especially in Rome, embodied the renewed energy of the Counter-Reformation. In Bernini's David, this sculpture is more dynamic. Bernini captures the theatrics of David as he is all wound up and ready to unleash the rock killing David. One can also see the theatrical style in the mocking of Jesus. The accusers seem to be laughing at Jesus, poking at him, and one of them appears to be pulling his hair. The Baroque period was about bringing action to their work. As a result of the Reformation, the Catholic Church mounted the Counter-Reformation. Kleiner describes this movement by saying, "The Catholic Church, in response, mounted a full-fledged campaign to counteract the defection of its members." Church officials had long been aware of the power of visual imagery. The Counter-Reformation sought to win back the people they had lost to the Reformation by reminding them the price Jesus paid for their sins, and that will reject the people who reject Christ. Many would say Michelangelo's The Last Judgment is a frightening depiction of what awaits those who reject Christ. The Church's reason for commissioning such a work was to scare people back into the Church. One can also see the price that Jesus paid in the mocking of Christ. While it was not as scary as the Last Judgment, it does show the price Jesus paid by being stripped and mocked by his accusers. In conclusion, it is interesting to see how artists have portrayed biblical stories over time. During the Renaissance, Michelangelo focused on beauty of human body. During the Counter-Reformation, God was portrayed as one not to mess with, and during the Baroque period, the biblical stories were portrayed much more theatrically.